What's up, guys? Welcome to Movie Importance Flashback Reviews, where we take movies from our past, break them down, and tell you what we think about them. As always, if you like what you see, remember to rate, subscribe, check out the YouTube channel, Facebook, and Twitter. Email nlapola113@gmail.com if you have any questions. So, we enter Phase 3 officially. We did a Captain Marvel review, but this is the official beginning point of Phase 3, in which is our quest to Avengers Endgame. And that, of course, is the massively popular comic book series that got turned into a one movie arc, which is Captain America Civil War. And so, first off, before I continue, we had this premiere with Kevin Feige, so I'm going to show it here for a second.
I'm having buyer's remorse on that Serpent Society subtitle for Captain America 3. It feels like there must be a better title somewhere.
So that was interesting because not only did we learn about what Phase 3 was going to be, which was completely different in the end from what they announced, but it was originally called Serpent Society, and Kevin Feige's like, no, we're actually going to call it Civil War, which, like I said, is one of the most popular comic book moments or, arcs of all time because we lose Captain America. He's killed off, I think by Crossbones or something like that, or Baron Zemo, whoever he's killed off by. And Spider-Man reveals his identity to the world. There's a cross between, Captain America and Iron Man. And I think it was all started because of a bomb that went off because of Mr. Fantastic, which is really cool that Disney's getting back Mr. Fantastic and the Fantastic Four because it gives us more of that ability to do that kind of stuff. And so, as the start of Phase 3, we get the Sokovia incident has just literally happened a few months prior or a year prior, however long it's been. The Avengers are on a mission in Largos or something of that nature, and it goes awry. They're after the Frank Grillo character who's playing Crossbones. He's been like really messed up after Winter Soldier. And there's an incident where Scarlet Witch trying to protect the crew because we have Captain America, who's played by Chris Evans. We have Falcon, who's played by Anthony Mackie. And we are getting this thing where they're they're going after Crossbones because he's after some kind of whatever material. And the Scarlet Witch causes basically an explosion in the Wakandan embassy in Largos. And it causes a rift throughout the governments, the UN and so on and so forth. And this is basically where we get our divide. Robert Downey Jr., who comes back as Tony Stark, he is involved with trying to create better worlds for people by allowing them to create stuff. He's financed a whole bunch of college kids' projects. And he comes across this mother who's played by Alfred Woodard. And she basically tells him, you guys killed my son. My son was a Wakandian, or not Wakandian, but he was a Sokovia military personnel, and he died. And you guys should pay for your actions. And that's how this movie is basically structured. You got the idea of, are the Avengers supposed to be responsible for the stuff that sometimes they're not? It's not their fault. The New York battle was not their fault. It was Loki got involved and he attacked New York City. Yes, the Sokovia thing was kind of their fault because Tony Stark was a little too mad, Frankenstein, and created Ultron, and it just becomes a mass problem of should the Avengers, should superheroes be accountable for their actions? And it's an interesting point because there are stuff that is going behind the scenes even today of people, and it doesn't necessarily involve the government. There was the whole stuff with the waterboarding incidents and stuff like that, people doing Black Ops behind the scenes. And it just brings up the fact that should we be responsible for stuff that we do? And I actually agree with what Tony Stark is doing here. It doesn't make it right because the Avengers are really trying to protect the people. Captain America, Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, all these characters, they're trying to protect the people, but they're just I don't know if there's just not enough people involved that they can't protect it very well. And these people are just inexperienced because, this is such a fast moving plot in the MCU of them becoming Avengers and them, taking over the reins of the Avengers Initiative, because Tony Stark's trying to, do what he does to make things better for the world. But the main problem I have with this movie is it's in the essence of Baron Zemo, who's played by Daniel Brühl. And I love Daniel Brühl. If you ever seen Rush, definitely check it out. But Daniel Brühl he plays Baron Zemo, and you don't really find out his overarching idea what he's going for. You think he's on a mission to keep the Winter Soldier, who's once again brought back by Sebastian Stan. And you think they're in the process of he's basically trying to have the Winter Soldier do something really bad to recreate the Winter Soldier Initiative, which is all these. You find out in the cold opening that the Winter Soldier is brainwashed basically by these use of words, which is a interesting tactic. I think it's actually a real tactic where he says words and it creates a mind wash type of situation. And he uses that against, Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes later on. But his overall plan is just to break up the Avengers because something that happened to his family in Sokovia. And this is why I don't like Age of Ultron, because it makes the Avengers look stupid. It makes everybody look dumb. These guys are there to protect people, and all it's doing is making them look like villains, like, outlaws, just like people that don't have any responsibilities. And Captain America is the least non-responsible guy. He's so responsible in his care for America and for the people that when an incident like this happens in Lagos, it breaks him. It makes him like just angry. And when Tony Stark goes on his rant, I like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. It's like one of the best comic book character movie actors in history. But I think he doesn't understand why these things are happening. And then the reveal at the end that the Winter Soldier killed his parents, and he does exactly what Star-Lord does in Avengers Infinity War. It's very bothersome. It really feels like that they should have done this in Avengers 2. And that's why I said it in Avengers 2, because Captain America Civil War should have been the story of Captain America trying to save Bucky Barnes. Yes, you can have other characters from other movies pop up in this movie, but this movie, to me personally, and I put out a poll because I was curious, this should be a Captain America movie. This shouldn't be an Avengers movie. It feels like an Avengers 2.5 movie, and this is what the problem is. This movie would have worked so much better if it was just called Avengers Civil War. And, maybe you had someone important die in that, instead of Quicksilver. But, you know, I'm not going to be too negative on it because it is a fascinating movie. It is a fun movie. The action sequences are amazing. The scenes where, Captain America, Steve Rogers, is trying to save his friend Bucky Barnes in the apartment. Like when they're jumping down the stairs, that stuff's all awesome. Just a fight, just seeing Captain America, Steve Rogers, jump off the ledge into the next, ledge of the stairs. And, then you got the airport fight, which I'll get to in a second because I want to introduce a couple characters that are introduced in this movie. And then I guess the ending battle scene between Tony Stark and Captain America and Winter Soldier is fine. It has really cool imagery. But when Tony Stark learns that his parents were killed by the Winter Soldier, and he doesn't think about the fact that the Winter Soldier is being manipulated by the Russian government and, the Hydra and all that good stuff, that maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe he was just doing what he was trained to do. And Bucky Barnes he specifically says he remembers everybody he killed. And he's going to have to live with this for the rest of his life. But Tony Stark has been so guilt-ridden, so angry about his parents leaving him that, of course it caused him to go into the arms business and him, causing, it basically retaliates him back to original Tony Stark. And I think it just is a fault of the whole movie. And it's not saying that, like I said, Robert Downey Jr. is still really good as Tony Stark. I just don't feel his motives, his ideas really work for a movie like this. But we'll get into like the good stuff. Like I said, Baron Zemo, I don't really like. I don't like his idea. I don't like his plot. When he kills a bunch of people, it's like whatever. But he does factor in to what I'm considering the backdoor pilot for Black Panther, because essentially T'Challa, who is, played by Chadwick Boseman, who is Black Panther in the very popular Black Panther movie, his father T'Chaka, that they're at the embassy, and of course we know what happens. The embassy explodes. T'Chaka dies. T'Challa goes on a vendetta mission, but his vendetta mission is, of course, flawed because he doesn't know the exact extent of what's going on. He's blaming the Winter Soldier. Everybody's blaming the Winter Soldier. Everybody's blaming Bucky Barnes, and it's kind of like the fog over the screen. And it's like I said, that's why it's bothersome. But I think honestly, Chadwick Boseman is the standout of this movie. Of course, we're gonna get into the other character, but I think his character is so well defined in this movie. He has true heart. He really, loves his father, and when his father dies, he's lost. And eventually he finds his way in the end until we get into the actual movie of Black Panther. But he is so good in this movie. He is so good at just expressing his feelings of being able to just go full tilt. And you see it when he fights Bucky Barnes on the rooftop. And you see when he finally gets to the end of the movie and he actually saves Baron Zemo from killing himself. Because, in the long run, Baron Zemo would eventually kill himself. That would have been a plot point. It's very interesting to see him protect himself. But then we got Martin Freeman, who plays the, I think he's like a SHIELD agent or an FBI agent or whatever he is. He shows up in Black Panther as a major character. But I love, I'm not the hugest fan of Black Panther, but I love T'Challa. I like what Chadwick Boseman is doing here. And it's a fantastic looking ride of what kind of character he really is. And I think the most surprising thing that ever happened out of this movie wasn't the fact that we get all these characters in it, wasn't the fact that we have a straight down the middle, just destruction of the Avengers. It's the fact that Sony and Marvel, Kevin Feige and I think Amy Pascal, who was the Sony CEO at the time, they struck a deal that is as big as the Walt Disney Warner Brothers Who Framed Roger Rabbit situation with the Looney Tunes and Disney characters. We got Spider-Man in this movie. That is not only huge, that is insane. And it's all ranged on the fact of Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, the one that came out with the two movies, Jamie Foxx was in it, and so on and so forth. Those bombed. And so when you stick Spider-Man into Civil War, which is a major character in that comic series, that is mind-blowing. And when Tony Stark visits him in the Bronx, and we get Marissa Tomei, who's playing Aunt May, she's really good in the movie, especially in Spider-Man: Homecoming, and then Tom Holland, who's playing Peter Parker, that was a what the hell just happened type of moment. And then when you see the airport battle and you see Spider-Man show up and take Captain America's shield and the quips he's saying and just the insanity that's involved, guys, that is impressive. And the fact that they were able to get a couple more movies out of this with Infinity War and possibly Endgame and Spider-Man: Homecoming and of course Spider-Man: Far From Home. Guys, this is why Kevin Feige is one of the best producers on the market and why he will go down as one of the best producers on the market, because how this happened is it's just insane. And how he interacts with like Ant-Man and Falcon and Bucky Barnes, and he brings up the Empire Strikes Back sequence, which he uses against Paul Rudd's character Ant-Man as he turns into Giant Man, which is another thing that freaked out fans because the Giant Man character was a hugely popular version of Ant-Man. But Jeremy Renner pops up in this movie in the airport battle, and like I said, Paul Rudd. We have, like I said, I haven't even talked about Paul Bettany, who is on the other side with Iron Man and his involvement with the eventual, thing that happens to Don Cheadle's character, where his lower half basically becomes useless because he falls to the ground, and Tony Stark's guilt ridden with that. And you see how that at the very end of the movie, you see how that plays out. But the airport, I'm gonna leave it with this: the airport battle sequence is impressive. There could have been more characters involved with it because it is really weird compared to like what we see in the comic books. But you only have a certain amount of characters; it can get confusing. I think the Russo brothers have done a really nice job with the action sequence in this moment. It's a really well paced. You get to see all the characters like fighting each other. I still think the Ant-Man stuff when he's breaking down Tony Stark's suit is impressive and awesome and fun. And, Spider-Man doing his thing, and, Jeremy Renner pops up as Hawkeye, and that's a lot of fun, and Scarlet Witch, and all these characters are fighting each other, and Baron Zemo's plan is working, even though I don't like that plan, but it's just a fascinating sequence to watch. And it's just good entertainment. And like I said, I think it falters after that, but this is like the epitome of what the Russo brothers were so good at with action sequences, and it plays really well. And of course, you get to see the raft, and there's so much stuff going in here. Like the Russo brothers have a real nice death persona to these movies. They know action for some weird reason. Maybe it's the comedy, background that created that for him, but it's impressive. It's amazing to watch, and what they're doing here and what they do eventually in Avengers Infinity War is I don't know. It's just really crazy how these two guys have taken over basically the Marvel universe. And it's just like, I even mentioned William Hurt shows up as Ross and Thaddeus Ross in this, and he's, the only character left over from the Incredible Hulk. And I mean, Emily Van Camp, plays Agent 13. She, there's also the Haley, the Agent Carter funeral, and it's just like this movie's so packed to the gills that it almost tips its like heaviness in the way, but I mean, there's so much stuff going on in this movie. It's amazing they made it work as well as they did, because it's still a good movie compared to the stuff we've gotten earlier. This is a still fun, entertaining movie that just has plot structure problems, but the characters are there. It's a lot of fun. It leads into stuff like Doctor Strange. It leads into stuff like Thor Ragnarok. It leads into stuff like Ant-Man and the Wasp. Eventually, Avengers Infinity War, which is the most impressive thing I've ever seen in a Marvel or comic book movie in general. And this is the start of everything that's going to happen that's going to lead into Infinity War, and it's done pretty impressively, even though, like I said, the structure doesn't work 100% of the time. So, but there you go. That's going to be my take on a Captain America Civil War. Very long, but there's a lot to talk about in this movie, and it is what it is. It's an interesting movie that could have been handled differently, but there you go. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like what you see, remember to rate, subscribe, check out the YouTube channel, Facebook, and Twitter. Email nlpolo113@gmail.com if you have any questions. So, in essence, tell me what you think of Captain America Civil War. I put out a poll to question whether this is an Avengers movie or a Captain America movie, and I think there's a few days left on it. Answer what you think about that. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace out.